Welcome to the Well Path podcast, where we sit down with experts and entrepreneurs across fitness, nutrition, mindfulness, and spirituality, offering you an inside peek at building a business and a life that is truly aligned. I'm your host, Brooke Robbins. Let's get into it. This episode is not a normal episode. This is a portal into your new reality. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Well Path podcast. I am your host, Brooke Robbins, and I am so excited to be recording this. This is the first episode of 2026, and I have been telling everybody that will listen that as a highly intuitive person, I have a deep-seated feeling about 2026. 2026 is going to be a banner year for so many of us, and we're going to get into sort of the energetics of all of that in this episode. But I want to kick off by sharing a couple of reflections from my perspective, as I'm sure a lot of you have done the same. Towards the end of 2025, I did a bunch of sort of reflections and thinking about what this last year was for me thematically, and looking forward into 2026, what's sort of the energy that I'm calling in and sort of feeling as well on a collective level. And one thing that I usually like to do at the end of every year and at the beginning of the next year is to look back and think about, if I had to distill this past year into a single word as a theme, what would it be? And looking forward, what is the theme and the energy that I'm trying to channel in a single word? And it kind of helps to just sort of like level set or have something to come back to. And for me, 2025 was a year of reinvention. Those of you that have been long-term listeners of the podcast know that I took a massive cliff jump at the end of 2024. I left an engagement, I moved continents, basically everything about my life kind of got turned upside down, and I effectively created a new life from scratch in 2025. That involved starting over socially, romantically, professionally, in pretty much every single facet of my life. And with that came a massive period of reinvention, for lack of a better term. Now, 2025 for me in that way was very much a foundation year, okay? And I talk about this season of my life a lot as a phoenix season, meaning you burn it all down and then you get to decide how you want to rise from the ashes. And I want to say first and foremost that if you're somebody who feels like you are in some sort of a phoenix season, maybe you've taken a cliff jump, maybe you're thinking about taking a cliff jump in some area of your life and you're afraid, know that as scary as massive change is, it's also incredibly exciting because you have this opportunity to really look inward and say to yourself, you know what? I only get one life to live. Who am I really? What do I really want? And what elements of my life are mapping to that? And what elements of my life have strayed from that? And it can be a really great period of recalibration, to use another word, where you get to sort of decide who you actually want to be. And so once again, that period of reinvention was very much like a clearing and a shedding and learning to kind of stand on my own 2 feet again and really deciding who I wanted to become in this next chapter of my life. Now, my theme for 2026 is expansion. And expansion means building from alignment. So 2025 for me was immediately post kind of blowing everything up, for lack of a better term, towards the end of 2024. 2025 was the year where I figured out who I am, who I want to be, setting a foundation. What does alignment even look like? What are my core values? And I'm really proud that over the last year, I have set a foundation of a new life. I feel very grounded in my friendships, in my communities, in my routines. And there have been a lot of sort of changes and foundational elements to kind of create the structure of this brand new life, right? 2026 for me is all about now building off of that foundation, building a ton of momentum and massive rapid expansion. That is the word when I was meditating on 2026 that just kept coming into my head, was expansion, and thinking about everything that I'm planning for, everything that I'm trying to accomplish, asking myself, what would it look like to 10x or 100x what I think is possible for myself? Now, interestingly, after thinking about those theme words, I started to also see online, as I'm sure lots of you have, and starting then to read a little bit about sort of the astrological themes of these last couple of years, right? And many of you have probably heard 2025 was the year of a snake, and 2026 we're moving into a horse year. And I think it's really interesting that
those themes actually map very well onto these words of reinvention and expansion. So reinvention is all about disruption, ego death, identity death, letting go of things, shedding things that are no longer fitting. And expansion is all about momentum, amplification, capacity. Reinvention asks, who am I now? Who am I becoming? And expansion asks, how do I embody that fully? And how do I use that to drive momentum in the direction that I'm going? The snake sheds, the horse runs, okay? But the horse needs to know where it's going. And so the snake is very archetypally about shedding skins. That's the major visual that kind of comes up. So it's a lot of introspection, strategic withdrawal. And I've talked about this a lot over the last year, being really called to isolation. And I felt that over the last year. Not to say that I obviously haven't made friends and spent a lot of time in community as well. But as somebody who's naturally pretty extroverted, for the first time in my life, I've been really strategic over the last year about alone time and also learning to not shame myself or apologize for needing alone time and knowing when are the moments when I'm in the right energy to share my energy and my light with other people, and when I really need to go inward, connect to myself, connect to source, higher power, and kind of recharge myself in that way. And it's also a lot about identity transformation, right? With that shedding of the skin, quiet recalibration. We talked in the last episode about the concept of integration. So when you're shedding these skins or sort of like figuring out the things in your life that maybe don't fit so much anymore that you want to actually let go of, there's also a period of time where you've shed the skin, but you're not really sure what you're coming into yet. And that's where most people get really scared. And I kind of want to just, voice that out loud in case, again, there's anybody listening to this podcast that feels resonant with these themes, maybe has had a similar journey over 2025, maybe is in a similar place starting 2026, that it is normal to feel a little bit anxious in the gap, okay? When you're letting go of things, there's going to be a period of time, sort of like a waiting period, if you will, before you fully step into and embody and drive momentum towards the next thing. And that is perfectly okay. And remember that a lot of the work of like a snake year, of a shedding year, is quiet and unseen. And there's a lot of foundation building that's happening in the background. And you're not maybe seeing the fruits of your labors quite yet. But this is why I am genuinely so excited for all of us for 2026, because I think a lot of us collectively have been in this energy of 2025 of letting go of things that are no longer serving us, understanding our worth, shedding things that aren't fitting, starting to understand where in our lives, whether it's professionally, relationally, etc., things are not in alignment with where we actually want to be going in our lives, and starting that journey of letting those things go. And as we move into 2026, and obviously the astrological calendar follows the lunar year, so technically we're still in the year of the snake until February. But as we move into the year of the horse energy, it's going to be very important that we've sort of taken the time, that introspective time, to figure out what we want to let go of and really cleanse and go through that shedding process and set the foundations so that you can actually run full speed ahead in the direction that you're going. And just remember that a snake year, a year of shedding, can feel like a loss before it feels like freedom, but the horse year is on its way. Now, as we move into the year of the horse, again, the horse is like the opposite expression of the snake. The horse is about momentum, movement, vitality, expression, freedom, expansion through action, taking aligned action. Once you've shed, now the horse is running full speed ahead. So if I had to summarize sort of the themes astrologically, which again mapped these kind of themes of reinvention and expansion, the snake year was, who am I now? What no longer fits? What do I need to release before I can move forward into this next season of my life? And the horse year is going to ask us, how do I move with what I've learned? How do I trust my energy and momentum? And how do I let myself be seen and fully expressed? And I think that this is going to also be a big year centered around authenticity and stepping into your power, right? Stepping into your power, meaning now you've done the work to let go of what doesn't serve you anymore. You've done the work to define who you are and where you want to go in your life. And now it's time to fully embody that and step into it. Stop making excuses, stop hiding, and let yourself be seen for who you truly are, and allow miracles and magic to flood in. I think there's this energy of, okay, we've done the hard work of the shedding. We're moving into this expansion year. And now is the perfect time before, again, the horse year officially starts, to make sure that you've really finalized your snake year. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about in this episode, making sure you've cleared away the things that are no longer relevant for you, and make sure that you've also identified who you actually are, i.e. the direction that you're actually heading, so that the horse can metaphorically run full speed ahead, right? And so on that note, I want to move into, in this section, just like a quick exercise that you're welcome to either sit down and journal on, or sort of just think through as you're listening to this, if you're driving, if you're running, if you're walking, wherever you may be, on how to actually identify your core values for this season. And there's a couple different ways to think about this. One, journaling exercise that is really helpful, which again, you can do as an actual journaling exercise, or just sort of think about this in a meditation or on a walk or while you're driving. What did last year teach me about what I will no longer tolerate? What are the things that you are being asked to shed in your life? 2, when do I feel most myself? Who am I with? And what am I doing? Starting to understand where you feel most in your authenticity, and then drawing themes, right? Are there words that come to mind? What does that feeling feel like? And thirdly, if I could only protect 3 things this year, what would they be? And the goal of these exercises is just to start to reconnect with, again, that like truth of you, that spark of you. Where do you feel most alive? Where do you feel most yourself? And try to come up with 3 to 4 words that are themes of your core values, of things that you are actually prioritizing in this season. And you can just go online or even ask ChatGPT for a list of like values words. Sometimes, at least for me, like I don't think of things so much in a vacuum as like respond to things. So you can see like a big list of words and feel which words kind of resonate with you. But pick like 3 to 4 and use those as sort of like your value pillars. And everything that you do and the decisions that you make, you can then measure up against those values and ask yourself this question: the things that I say that are important to me, am I acting in alignment with that? Am I actually prioritizing the things that I say matter the most to me? And where am I not? And how can I address that? Now, another way to think about direction, okay? Let's say maybe you're somebody who is like, yes, I know that I'm feeling a little bit stuck in life in certain ways. I feel like I'm not necessarily on the right path in one capacity or another, but I'm struggling to envision where I actually want to go. I don't feel like I have a super strong sense of self. I don't feel like I have a super strong sense of what I'm supposed to be doing and what alignment would look like for me. One, you're not alone, okay? This is the lifelong learning process. So you're going to be constantly learning about yourself. But 2, I will share, diagnostic tools are not everything. At the end of the day, you also need to be able to listen to your own intuition and allow that to guide you. However, they can be really, really helpful tools to A, almost give yourself permission to be yourself, and B, provide a little bit of that clarity and that structure for you to at least think through some of these questions. And for me, and I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast and a little bit on socials, so if you've been here for a while, you've probably heard me talk about human design. Human design honestly has changed my life over the last couple of years. I discovered human design while I was still living in Dubai, while I was still in my last relationship, feeling a little bit like things were not necessarily aligned for me on multiple areas, like professionally, just in general. There were things that I knew sort of weren't sitting right with me in my body, in my soul. And I discovered human design. And I remember so specifically the day that I heard my chart, because the way that I discovered human design was through Jenna Zoe. Jenna Zoe is amazing. I love her content. And she has an amazing app called the Align app, where you can plug in your birth information. And if you pay for the app, you can actually listen to her read your entire chart out loud. Okay. It's amazing. I love this tool. You can also, by the way, and we'll go into this, get a abbreviated version of your chart for free online through Jenna Zoe's tools, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I remember listening to my entire chart on like a 2-hour long walk one day and almost wanting to cry because I felt so seen and so understood. And it really felt like a massive permission slip for the way that I am. And a lot of the times, I think all of us, to some extent or another, will like shame ourselves for the way that we operate. And the whole premise of human design is that all of us were built to operate differently, but society has told us that we should all work in the same way. And that has created all of these friction points. The reality is we were all designed differently. This makes sense, right? And the way that I'm going to be most successful and happiest and most fulfilled is going to look different than you, because we are built to operate differently. We have different blueprints, if you will. And human design is like a part science, part spiritual system that effectively tells you who you came here to be. And there are so many different elements of your chart. It really starts from your energy type, how you create and utilize energy, and your authority, which is sort of how you feel or experience your intuition. What's your decision-making strategy? And it even goes so far as to talk through your life theme, which is sort of like the theme and purpose that's threaded through everything that you do, your personality type, how you show up in the world, what the sort of theme of your life is. And again, as with everything, you run these tools against the filter of your own intuition. But at least for me and for so many people that I've spoken to, it really is so accurate. And it really, for me at least, helped give me the permission to actually move in the direction that on a soul level, I already knew I wanted to move. So I want to encourage you, if you've never heard of human design, to look up your chart. I also do readings. So if you want to do like a reading with me, you can DM me about that. That is something that I offer. But you can also, again, completely for free, go online. I'm going to put the link in the show notes, and you can plug in your birth information and you can get at least like the intro abbreviated version of your chart. You can also download Jenna Zoe's app. This is not sponsored, by the way. I just love her app, called Align, and you can get like a more detailed version of your chart that you can even listen to from the app on your phone, and use that as a starting point. And again, run it through the filter of your intuition, see what feels right, see what doesn't feel right. But it's a really interesting tool for self-reflection. Another diagnostic kind of tool system that I recently heard actually on the Wellness Process podcast by Elizabeth Arrigo, formerly Andres, and I really liked this, is she talked about using ChatGPT to kind of come up with a hybrid blueprint. And what she recommended doing, which I've done and I've found it really interesting, is to go online. Again, I'll put the link in the show notes. Go to the human design chart, download that, and then also, and take a screenshot of it, and then also use CoStar or an astrology app, put your birth information in there, download your chart, take a screenshot of the chart, the part with like the circles and the cross lines and whatnot, and then upload both of those things to ChatGPT with the prompt using my human design and my astrology chart. Write me a blueprint for how I'm meant to move through the world. And you can give specific questions of what is my purpose? What are my specific gifts? What are the other things of my chart that I should know? And I think it's, again, really interesting. It's a good starting point if you're feeling a little bit directionless, if you're feeling like you're struggling to find your footing, or you don't really have anything to like respond to of what direction would I actually want to move. Maybe you, again, know that something isn't aligned, but you don't have that clarity of actually what is yet. It's a helpful tool and a starting point to at least give you some ideas and think through it. And an important nuance that I want to actually mention, which is related to human design, is, for example, in human design, there are two different types of manifestors, okay? You're either a specific manifestor or a non-specific manifestor. I, for example, am a non-specific manifestor. So it's actually very difficult for me to sit in a vacuum, maybe impossible for me to sit in a vacuum and out of thin air be like, this is what I want for my life. The way that I operate from a manifestation perspective is non-specific. So it's more about the feeling of something. I can see it in general terms, but it's kind of like a blurry outline. And it's important for me to just respond to stimuli. So when I see something come across, whether it's an opportunity, a person, a place, whatever, something to eat, I have a visceral gut reaction, like, yes, that's right for me. And it energizes me, or like da 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 da. So I'm a responder. So anyway, the point is, relevant to your chart, you may not also be somebody who can actually vision board a life out of thin air in the way that I feel like is popularized, and that's perfectly okay. Now, while we're here, I also want to talk a little bit about this last year of kind of reinvention for me and some of the lessons that have come out of it, because it's very relevant and it's going to, again, help set the tone for moving into this momentum expansion theme of 2026. And for those of you that are on the newsletter list, I published a full list of 25 things that I learned in 2025 in the newsletter. So if you want the full list, go check it out there. But I'm going to highlight a couple of key specific points of just things that have really jumped out to me that I've learned over a year of effective, like, entire identity reinvention. And the first thing that I want to pull out as a lesson is that you are who you decide you are. And I really can't stress that enough. When I was first embarking on this year, okay, after immediately like jumping off the cliff and sort of leaving the relationship, moving, etc., one of the first books that I read was Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. If you've not read this book, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It really just grounds you in the truth of the fact that you have the power. You have so much power, okay? You have so much power. And you can change anything about your personality at any time. You can rewire anything about your life, your thought patterns. It's all within your control, okay? Our brains, our minds, our souls. It is a very unique and impressive technology. And we have so much power than we think that we have. And you decide, you are who you decide you are. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you a perfect example. One example from this past year is one of the first groups of friends that I sort of integrated with happened to all be really impressive, like endurance athletes. Okay. So I met one of my best friends, Sid, and Sid started going to this run club, and this run club meets at 4:40 in the morning on Wednesday mornings. Okay. It's called 440 Run Club. If you're in Miami, you should totally come. It's on Wednesday mornings at 4:40. And I know that sounds insane. It sounds diabolically insane. And that was my reaction when I first heard about it as well. But this was a friend of mine, a really close friend of mine. I was new to the city and I was like, you know what? What the heck? I will give it a go. And I started going to this run club in May. And it took probably about a month. But after a month of waking up at 3:50 to get to the track on the beach, at the time I didn't live in Miami Beach, for a 4:40 a.m. start time, after about a month, it became totally normal. And not only on, Wednesday mornings to wake up at 3:50, but because I was waking up at 3:50 on Wednesday mornings, it became totally normal to wake up before 5 on other days. And I would start routinely going to these like 5:15 a.m., Pilates classes, being up at 4:50. So my whole point is, something that sounded so insane to me, which is like waking up before 5 a.m., became totally normal within a very short period of time. And you can apply that example to literally anything. Anything that normal is, there's no objective definition of normal, okay? So normal is what you decide normal is. Normal is what you decide it is. It's what the people around you decide it is. It's what the story that you tell yourself is in your head, okay? And so things that feel crazy to you and feel like they would be really challenging and feel really difficult can become normal very, very quickly. It depends on what you decide. And a lot of the power that we all have over our own lives is the power of storytelling. And yes, it's the stories that we tell other people about who we are and what we're doing. But more importantly, it's the story that you're telling yourself subconsciously in the background, your stream of consciousness 24/7. What is the story you're telling about a situation? What is the story that you're telling yourself about what's possible for you? And your nervous system will resist the change before it normalizes it, but the normalization will come. So you have to become comfortable with this temporary discomfort. It's going to feel challenging. It's going to feel insane, whatever it is, the change that you're trying to make, for a little while. But honestly, much quicker than you can imagine it, it's going to become totally normal for you. By the way, I'm recording this episode at like 5 a.m. So case in point, totally normal for me. I feel great. And I've actually learned that I love early mornings, and that's a great time for me to get focused work done. I feel really creative in the morning, and like I never would have known that about myself. Lesson number 2, and I say this all the time, but I will just shout it from the rooftops for the rest of my life. Authenticity is magnetism. Authenticity is magnetism. When you start to genuinely give no Fs, because this is why I think rock bottoms are so powerful, okay? When you go through something, it doesn't matter what it is, really challenging, and you kind of get to a point where you're like, you know what? I have nothing to lose at this point. You kind of just throw your hands up in the air and you're like, you know what? I'm so tired of like putting on a facade and pretending to be who I'm not and whatever. And when you get really tired and you say, you know what, I'm just going to fully be exactly who I am and just like see what happens, magic happens. And I think there's a couple of reasons for this. The frequency of authenticity, the frequency of somebody genuinely being so comfortable in their own skin, it's partially confidence, but it's also, there's just like an energetic alignment, and everything is energy. And people feel that. They may not be able to name it. They may not know why they're drawn to you, but people will be drawn to you like moths to a flame when you're actually genuinely in love with yourself and embodied in yourself and doing what you actually want to do. And this is the cheat code that I feel like people don't understand. Everyone thinks that they have to do things a certain way because society tells them that. Whereas when you actually follow what is right for you and lights you up and excites you, you're going to outperform everybody because you're going to have more energy for it. You're going to be more excited about it. And there's this intangible element of authenticity is magnetism. It is one and the same. People feel this energy and it is like they can't take their eyes off of it. And when you stop performing and you stop chasing and you start to just be you, Opportunities will find you in that congruence. Expansion is only possible when you're not splitting yourself. And lesson number 3, healing is not linear, okay? And this is really important for me to double down on because, again, maybe there are other people listening that have taken a cliff jump or done something really difficult recently. And I want to just say that healing is not linear. You can know that you made the right decision and still grieve it, and still grieve the future that you once imagined, and still grieve the future that you walked away from, even if you know that it wasn't right for you. Grief doesn't equal regret. And if you expect to have to let something go once and then you move on and you never think about it again, you're in for a rude awakening. Whatever the case may be, any major change that you make in your life, it is normal. It's going to come and go in waves. Every time the waves come, they get a little bit smaller, but they keep coming for a little while, okay? It's like a gradual process of one day you'll wake up and you'll not feel sad about it anymore, or it won't feel sensitive for you anymore. It won't feel triggering for you anymore, but it's going to take time. Be patient with yourself. Give yourself that time. Do not rush the process. Whenever the emotions come up, feel them, okay? Feel them. Allow them to come up. Give them space. Give yourself time. And I promise you, over time, again, the waves get smaller and smaller and smaller until they actually do disappear. But it's going to take probably longer than you're comfortable with. It's going to take a little bit longer than you want it to take, okay? Once again, those are just like a couple lessons that I wanted to pull out from 2025 that I think are relevant for anybody who is finishing out a shedding year. But full list is in the newsletter. I will link that in the show notes as well. Take a minute to ask yourself the question, what was the theme of 2025 for me? What is the theme of 2026 for me? Feel free to borrow my words if they feel resonant and if they feel accurate for you of reinvention expansion, but maybe you're in a different season of your life. But take some time to think about what was 25 for you? What were the key things that you took away from that year? And then what are you channeling in terms of what is the energy of 2026 for you? Last thing I want to mention is spots for Q1 coaching are open. So if you are in a period of reinvention, expansion, going through some sort of life changes and you want some support through that journey, I would be honored to support you in that journey of building from self-trust rather than self-abandonment. You can book a clarity call with me for 15 minutes to chit chat about what coaching is and see if there's a good fit. Link will be in the show notes and in my link tree as well. And then again, newsletter is up if you want to read through the rest of the 25 reflections from 2025. If we're not connected on Instagram and TikTok yet, join me there at the.well.path on both platforms. I'm going to be posting, polls and things like that on stories over the next couple of weeks as I'm building out content and themes and topics for Q1. So join me there. I would love to hear from you guys. I want to hear what you're going through, but mostly just so excited to be with you on this journey in 2026. Once again, like I said at the very beginning of this episode, I just have this really super spidey sense that 2026 is going to be a massive growth and transformation year for so many of us and for so many of you listening to this podcast. So I want you to start to channel and get really excited for that energy. And I'm excited and honored to just be along for the ride. So have an amazing rest of your week. I will see you next Monday morning for our next episode. And I'm so excited.